I'm in the big leagues, told him don't miss me. Ballin' like Houston, ayy, feeling like Whitney. I need a bag, bruh, send it through quickly. I'm making his dog, like I'm in the big leagues. Told him that I gotta go, dog. I'm riding a road, y'all. I think that I'm back in my bag now. So I need that go, y'all. Got hits when he throwing the fastball. Just too quick for it, peeling off like the whip orange.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Another Turnover, the basketball podcast where a basketball fan with zero basketball credibility gives his opinions on what's going on in the NBA. Opinions that nobody asked for. As always, I am your host, Mr. Chris Aaron Murphy, aka Aaron, and ladies and gentlemen, let's just jump right into it. So, folks, apologize for missing last Friday's show, but we are back. We are back for more NBA hoops talk, more NBA action. But before I get started, I kind of want to just lay out some things that are going to be coming up for the show. So far this season, I've been kind of doing shows every Tuesday and Friday. And I think I'm going to change it up a little bit for 2022. I am going to do every Friday still, but what I'm planning on doing is probably doing a Tuesday show like at the end of the month, like a Super Tuesday show where basically I talk about kind of a recap, what's happened in the month, you know, players of the month and things like that, teams of the month, and just kind of go through some things that have happened specifically for that month. So kind of wanted to change up the format or whatnot, but let me know if you got suggestions or anything like that. Let me know what you think. But another fun thing that I have coming up for the show. So this Tuesday, so next week, so there will be no Friday show this coming up Friday because I plan to go see Spider-Man. So I want to go see that movie opening night, Thursday night. But I am going to have some coworkers on the show this next Tuesday. So that'll be the 21st when you're hearing this on the 14th. So that'll be coming up here where we're basically going to give, that'll be the year-end show. That'll be the last show of 2021 until about probably, second week of January or so. I'll take a little break, a little holiday break. But we are going to give our boldest takes for the remainder of the season. So I've got three coworkers who have really wanted to be on, and we're going to talk about our three boldest takes that are coming up for the remainder of this season. So it should be pretty fun. I am looking forward to it. I am looking forward to hearing what they come up with and kind of seeing, some of the differences for how we all feel about it. So it should be pretty fun. But for today's show, let's just jump right into it. So I'm going to give, if you remember earlier this season, I did a show where I kind of recapped the season so far, where I basically kind of went through, some of the surprises and things like that, some of the, the standings, and kind of talked about it, kind of broke it down a little bit. So we are going to do that again here. So this will be the second iteration of the season so far, and I'll probably do probably more than a couple of these shows as the season progresses, because as we know, NBA things change pretty frequently. So let's get into it. So I'm going to start in the Western Conference. We're going to talk about the season so far. So let's kind of go through the Western Conference and let's look at the standings and see what's happened. So right now you have the Phoenix Suns. Phoenix Suns are at 21-4. So as we all know already, they started out 1-3. They definitely struggled right out of the gate, but they went on that 18-game win streak. So one of the, the greatest win streak of this season so far. But in one of the higher win streaks in NBA history, modern NBA history, I should say. So Devin Booker playing pretty well. He is injured right now, still out with a hamstring injury, but 23 points per game. Chris Paul averaging 14 points and 10 assists per game. I had a coworker arguing that he is the MVP of the season so far. I strongly disagree with that, but he is balling out. I will give him his props, his flowers while he is playing well. But Mikal Bridges has definitely taken a leap, especially on the defensive end, become one of the better two-way players that we have seen in the NBA so far. So the Phoenix Suns, number one in the West at 21-4, but right behind them are the Golden State Warriors, who are 21-5. So they are already ahead of schedule this season. They were kind of supposed to hold it down until Klay Thompson and James Wiseman came back, two of their starters, but they are definitely ahead of schedule. Definitely overachieving so far in the early part of this season. I mean, Steph is putting up MVP numbers, 27 points, 6 assists, 5 rebounds per game. He is playing incredibly. Draymond Green doing all the dirty work, leading the team in assists and rebounds, averaging about 8 assists and 8 rebounds as well. Jordan Poole, definitely, I would say, in that conversation at the very least for most improved player of the year. So the Golden State Warriors have definitely done a tremendous job so far this season at 21-5. Third spot in the Western Conference as of right now, you have the Utah Jazz that are 19-7. I mean, honestly, I'm not surprised that Utah is, top 3 in the Western Conference so far. They are a great regular season team. They are currently on a 7-game win streak, so I think that's the best win streak in the NBA as of right now, the best active win streak in the NBA right now. So, I mean, they're solid. I mean, the Utah Jazz are solid. They got, plenty of players in double figures, but I just don't see them as a contender. I don't see them making any legitimate noise in the Western Conference. Like, they're just a really good regular season team. Like, y'all remember that, that regular season team back, let's say 7-8 years ago, that Atlanta Hawks team that had, Al Horford and Jeff Teague and all those dudes when they won 60 games, and then they got swept in the Eastern Conference Finals by the Cleveland Cavaliers. Like, that's that. That's basically what they are. Like, they're just a really good regular season team. I don't see them honestly progressing past the second round this year. Probably, maybe not even the first round, depending on who their matchup is. But next team in the Western Conference, we have the Memphis Grizzlies at 16-11. They have been playing some incredible basketball. They have a team full of dogs. You got Jaren Jackson, you've got Dylan Brooks. Obviously, Ja Morant is injured right now, but he is definitely, one of them dogs as well, as they like to say. But they are 7-3 in their last 10 games. They have actually played really well without Ja Morant. They also played without Ja Morant against the Lakers earlier last week and won 108-95, if I'm not mistaken. So beating the Los Angeles Lakers, who did have their big three. So beating the Los Angeles Lakers with no Ja Morant was no easy feat. So shout out to the Memphis Grizzlies. Fifth spot, you have the Los Angeles Clippers at 15-12 on the season. They are definitely holding it down until Kawhi Leonard comes back. This is kind of where I thought, the Warriors would be, like I just mentioned just a little bit ago. But they are definitely holding it down until Kawhi Leonard comes back. I think he's still projected to come back later this season. But Ty Lue has them playing inspired, has them playing really solid team defense. Paul George is playing pretty decent. He's playing pretty well, leading this team in most statistical categories based off what I have seen. So they're definitely holding it down. They're not terrible, but they're not the best either. But that's exactly where they probably expected themselves to be as well, which I did too. You got the sixth spot at 15-13. You have the Los Angeles Lakers. So now they have dealt with, kind of some injuries, here and there to LeBron. He's kind of been in and out of the lineup so far, but they've really struggled with inconsistency in their lineup as well as their defense has been, I would say there's been a lack of effort on the defensive end in a lot of the games that I've watched of the Lakers. But I will give props where props are due. Everybody knows me to be a certified LeBron hater, but LeBron James has been balling out. He's got 8 30-point games this season. I think that's either the most or tied for the most, if I'm not mistaken, I believe with Kevin Durant. But he's only played in 16 games. So at half of the games he has played, he has had at least 30 points. So shout out to LeBron for that. The Lakers are probably going to improve, I would say. I mean, I can't be that naive and think that the Lakers are going to be this mediocre for this long. But they're probably going to improve. So we'll see what happens with them. But, Dallas Mavericks are taking up the 7th spot. They are 13-13. They have severely underachieved, I would say, so far in the season. Luka Doncic, now he's putting up his numbers, 25 points, 8 rebounds, and 8 assists. You even got Porzingis playing pretty well, too. I think he's averaging about 17 points a game. But they really need another guy. Like, Luka is the focal point of their offense. And when he's not on, this team is awful. Like, they are not, up to task without Luka Doncic, doing everything for them, basically. They need another guy. I mean, could they potentially I don't think they have the assets, nor would, Washington probably do this deal, but if they were able to potentially pair up Luka with, I'd say like a Bradley Beal, that could be something. I could see them two meshing pretty well together. Like I said, I don't think that's going to happen, but that would be something that could potentially get the Dallas Mavericks over the top. But we'll see. You got the 8th spot. It's the same record at 13-13. You got the Denver Nuggets. Denver Nuggets have dealt with some injuries as well. Jokic was out for a number of games, and some other players, I think you had some injuries too. They still have the injury to Jamal Murray. Tore his ACL last season, so there's no timetable just yet for his return. I don't know if they said he's going to come back potentially this season, but he is still out. Jokic I didn't even realize, Jokic is putting up MVP numbers again. He is averaging 26.5 points, 13.5 rebounds, and 7 assists so far. So he's also averaging 1.2 steals. So he is leading in 4 out of the 5 major statistical categories for this Denver Nuggets team. So incredible numbers from Jokic. I would expect them to improve here soon. I don't see them being an 8th seed in the Western Conference, but we shall see. You got the Minnesota Timberwolves taking up the 9th spot. They are 12-15. I really like this team. I like watching this young Minnesota Timberwolves team. You have Karl-Anthony Towns, who is leading them, I believe, with about 24.5 points per game. It's hard not to root for him, especially with everything that he's dealt with, since, COVID the pandemic changed all of our lives. But he's lost, a lot of family members, including his mother. He dealt with it himself, a pretty bad bout with COVID. So it's hard not to root for Karl-Anthony Towns. But Anthony Edwards is hilarious. He's definitely taken a leap in his sophomore season. He is averaging, I believe he's second leading scorer, averaging about 19 points per game for the Minnesota Timberwolves. And D'Angelo Russell is solid. I mean, we know him. We know what he is, basically. Solid point guard in the NBA and solid point guard for that team specifically. So Minnesota Timberwolves taking up the 9th spot. In the 10th spot, you at 11-16, you have another underachieving team, unfortunately, in the Portland Trailblazers. They have dealt with some injuries as well. Damian Lillard was out of the lineup. CJ McCollum, I believe he has a collapsed lung or something like that. Prayers up to him. Hopefully he gets better here soon. But they've dealt with some injuries. They have underachieved. I mean, they're not better than they were last year. And I think it's probably time to split this Dame and CJ McCollum pairing. Individually, they're both great. Obviously, their number one is Damian Lillard. But that being the case, I think this partnership has run its course. And there's another partnership that I think has run its course as well in the NBA that I'm going to get to in just a little bit. But I think it's time for that duo, that backcourt to finally split. And that's going to have to come through a trade. Dame, I think, has got like 2 or 3 years left on his deal. I don't know exactly how much time left CJ McCollum has, but I think it's time to go ahead and split this up. I could definitely see, with Chauncey Billups, Damian Lillard seems very committed to not just Portland itself, but Chauncey Billups as well, because it's, first year as a head coach in the NBA, but I think it's time for them to kind of split. But we'll see what happens. But let's go on over to the Eastern Conference. Let's transition over to the East side. Let's look at the standings in the Eastern Conference. So number one, there's no surprise here, is the Brooklyn Nets at 19-8 on the NBA season so far. Kevin Durant, hey, he's also, putting in MVP caliber numbers. He just dropped 51 the other day against the Detroit Pistons. So 51 against the Detroit Pistons. But there is a bit of uncertainty that is going on so far with this Brooklyn Nets team that we've kind of already talked about. James Harden, where you at? I mean, are you still hurt or whatever? I don't know what it is, but he is not the James Harden that we know. What I keep hearing is shell of himself. Did he fall off a cliff all of a sudden and is his body too beat up? I don't think that's the case. I think he's got plenty of good basketball years left in him, but he's definitely got to step it up if they have championship aspirations. But you also still have the big question mark, no Kyrie Irving. I saw a report earlier today that said Kyrie Irving potentially, there is growing optimism that the Brooklyn Nets say that he's going to come back, whether that's him playing road games or him taking the vaccine. I don't think that's going to happen, but we shall see what goes on with the Brooklyn Nets. But like I said, a little bit of uncertainty, but they are the number one seed in the Eastern Conference so far. Number 2 seed, not a surprise here either, is the Milwaukee Bucks at 18-10. They also had some injuries to start with this season, but their big three of Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton, and Giannis Antetokounmpo, I believe I saw a statistic that said when they all played this year, they are undefeated, 7, 8, 9 games, something like that. They may have lost by now, but that was about a week or so I saw that stat. But their big three is, arguably among the best big three in the NBA. You have Giannis, who is averaging MVP-type numbers as well, 27 points, 11 rebounds, and 6 assists. So the Milwaukee Bucks taking up the second spot in the Eastern Conference. You got the Chicago Bulls at 17-10. Solid start for them. I would say that they are better than I anticipated. I definitely saw them being a playoff team, but hovering around that 6-7 spot. But they have played really, really well. They're better than I expected. Like I said, Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan has messed a whole heck of a lot better than I thought they would. And they've been playing really well, sharing the ball, moving the ball. Lonzo Ball has been playing really, really well for the Chicago Bulls team. So they are definitely, I wouldn't even say they overachieved, but they've had a really, really good start to the season. They are dealing with a tremendous COVID outbreak as of right now, which is pretty crazy. I'm just looking here on ESPN. I was researching this show. The NBA, this is, from ESPN, Adrian Wojnarowski, senior NBA insider. NBA has postponed the next 2 Chicago Bulls games amid coronavirus outbreak. As a COVID-19 outbreak sidelines 10 of its players, the NBA has postponed the next 2 Chicago Bulls games to allow the franchise to start getting back healthy and curb further spread. In the first game casualties of the season, the NBA will reschedule the Bulls-Pistons game that was supposed to take place today, when you're listening to this Tuesday, as well as the Bulls-Raptors game for this Thursday. Bulls were eager to have the league grant them relief for the postponements and get the support of the Chicago Department of Public Health. Forward Elise Johnson tested positive Monday, when I'm recording this, so today, Monday night. But the Bulls were down to a league minimum of 8 players, and some of those weren't even among the top regular rotation players. So, right now, in health and safety protocols for the Chicago Bulls, you have DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, Troy Brown Jr., Kobe White, Javonte Green, Matt Thomas, Derrick Jones Jr., Ayo Dosunmu, I didn't say that right, and Stanley Johnson. So all of those guys are in health and safety protocols right now. Basically, once players enter the protocols, that they have to quarantine for 10 days, or they have to return 2 back-to-back negative PCR tests within a 24-hour window. So, pretty crazy. We're still living in unprecedented times with COVID. Unfortunately, the Chicago Bulls had an outbreak. I hope that everybody stay safe. I hope they recover, fully recover, so they can get back to playing. But pretty crazy outbreak with Chicago Bulls. But 4th seed in the Eastern Conference, you have the Miami Heat at 16-11. Pretty solid start. They were, I think, they were 7-1 or 8-1 when they started out, but they definitely cooled off a bit due to injuries mostly. Bam Adebayo's been out of the lineup. Jimmy Butler has kind of been in and out of the lineup as well. But they're kind of right where I anticipated at that 4th spot. You have the Cleveland Cavaliers at 16-12, which when I was looking at this, I was like, what the heck? Like, the Cleveland Cavaliers, like what? They've won 4 games in a row. Pretty solid streak so far. They have 7 players averaging double figures right now. Evan Mobley is arguably, I would say he's probably the rookie, leading the rookie of the year, standings, I would say, so far. 14 points and 8 rebounds he is averaging. The Cleveland Cavaliers shocking a lot of people so far with a pretty solid season. Philadelphia 76ers, they are 15-12. Kind of where I expected them to be, with this whole Ben Simmons drama. They are definitely not nearly as good as they were last year, finishing with the number 1 seed in the East. Ben Simmons saga continues. There were reports that I saw just a couple days ago that the Celtics were interested in making a move, in trade talks for him. You also had the Blazers, that CJ McCollum deal has been floating around pretty much all season. So you have the Philadelphia 76ers, mediocre so far. They definitely got to move past this Ben Simmons thing and get this deal done so they can really kind of move on. But we shall see what happens with that. Washington Wizards are also the same record, 7th spot in the Eastern Conference, 15-12. They definitely had a fall from grace, just like I predicted earlier in the season when they were the best team in the NBA. They had a hot start. But Beal's scoring numbers are down. He's only averaged about 22.5 points so far. He's definitely, capable of 26, 27, 28 points per game, output in the NBA season. But definitely his numbers have been down. But yeah, Kyle Kuzma, he's playing pretty decent at 8 rebounds per game for this Washington Wizards team. So they're definitely not, I wouldn't even be surprised if they fell all the way out of playoff contention into play-in, but we'll see about that. The Charlotte Hornets, 8th spot, they are 15-13. This is probably my favorite team to watch so far this season. The way they play, they get up and down, play really fast, jack up a lot of threes. Really fun to watch. LaMelo is having an incredible season. LaMelo Ball, 20 points, 7.7 rebounds, 8.2 assists, 1.9 steals, leading his team in 4 out of the 5 major statistical categories. Or 3 of them. Miles Bridges. I always get them mixed up. But Miles Bridges is averaging just a hair more points than LaMelo Ball is. But they're playing pretty well. You all have the Atlanta Hawks, who are disappointing me. I don't know about anybody else. Probably disappointing the city of Atlanta. But they are 13-13. I mean, after last year's run, I expected them to be a whole heck of a lot better. I mean, top 5 at best, maybe at worst, maybe 6 or 7. But, they're terrible. They have not played well. I've already kind of gotten on them. I don't know exactly what it is. I don't know if it's defense. I don't know if it's whatever. I don't think it's Nate McMillan. He's a really, really solid coach. But they're just bad. That's no way to put it. They're bad. So I hope they get better. Boston Celtics round out the 10th spot in the Eastern Conference. They are 13-14. This is my second favorite team, right behind, my first love, the San Antonio Spurs. They're mediocre and they're inconsistent. It's probably time to consider breaking up the pairing of Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. I say consider, not saying, do anything, out of haste or anything like that. But arguably, this partnership may have run its course and might be a bit redundant. But we'll see what happens. But the Boston Celtics have not played well so far. But that's a quick recap of the teams so far in the standings in the Western Conference as well as the Eastern Conference. You've got, Phoenix taking the top spot in the West. You've got the Brooklyn Nets taking the top spot so far in the Eastern Conference. Now, if you remember my way too early season predictions, those were my 2 finals picks. So far, they're both number 1 in their respective conferences. I'm just saying, I'm not saying anything just yet. I'm just saying I did pick them in the beginning of the season. But another thing that I wanted to kind of take a look at, I kind of wanted to talk about so far in the basically 25 games that we've seen in the NBA season, 25-26 games. Who is the MVP so far? Who has a legitimate case so far in the early part of the season for the MVP? And I think that's been narrowed down to 2 guys. Obviously, Stephen Curry. Steph's averaging 27 points, 6.3 assists, 5.6 rebounds. He's also had a 50-point game, and he is about to pass Ray Allen for the all-time three-point record. I think he only needs about 6 or 7 more three-point shots. So Stephen Curry is having a tremendous season, doing all of this without his running mate, his fellow Splash brother, and Klay Thompson. So the fact that the amount of focus and attention that he gets on the defensive end, and for him to be able to still put up MVP caliber numbers, is pretty incredible. So Steph, I would say, is probably number 1 leading candidate for MVP right now. But right behind him on his heels is Kevin Durant. Look, we all know what Kevin Durant can do, what Kevin Durant is capable of. 29.4 points per game. I believe he's leading the NBA. He's the NBA scoring leader right now. 7.6 rebounds, 5.6 assists. Not a whole lot of help, obviously, with, James Harden, not playing well, and Kyrie Irving not playing at all. So Kevin Durant is putting in some pretty solid numbers. 8 30-point games this season. Like I said, I think him and LeBron are tied right now for the most 30-point games. So those are my 2 MVP, leading candidates so far in the early part of the season. But I also want to talk about the MIP, the most improved player of the year so far. I'm going to give love to DeJounte Murray because nobody else is going to do it. I would definitely say he is a leading candidate for the MIP award. He's averaging 18 points per game, which is way up, 8.3 assists per game, and 8.4 rebounds per game. I think he's either first or second for guard, just a leading for rebounding this season. He is tied for second for the most triple-doubles. So Russ and Jokic are tied at 5 triple-doubles so far this season. And he is tied, DeJounte Murray, tied with James Harden for second most. He's got 4 triple-doubles on the season. He also has second most all-time triple-doubles for San Antonio. We've obviously had some greats come through San Antonio. So DeJounte Murray, he is the guy. He is the most improved player so far. And obviously I'm a little biased, but who cares? This is my show. I can be biased if I want to. But DeJounte Murray, you so far, sir, you are my pick for the most improved player of the year. But I will give love to another player who's also probably had a legitimate case in Miles Bridges, in Charlotte, who I talked about earlier. averaging 20.3 points, 7.2 rebounds, 3.5 assists. Not averaging as many assists or rebounds as DeJounte Murray, but, just putting that out there. But he's had some solid outings. He's had 30-point games so far this season. Most of them have led to wins. He had 30 points and they lost a few times, but that's neither here nor there. But the Hornets, he's probably better suited in better position to win the most improved player so far this year because the Hornets have overachieved. They're eighth in the Eastern Conference right now, but they've had some pretty solid wins, and I think that they are going to probably win some more games and get up in the standings more. But like I said, DeJounte Murray, he's my guy. He's the most improved player of the year so far, in my opinion. But we shall see what happens. Let's see what happens for the remainder of the season. But, ladies and gentlemen, that is all the show I have for you so far today. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, there will be no Friday show. Next Tuesday's show will be the year-end finale in terms of 2021 before we go on holiday break for a couple weeks. So, next Tuesday, year-end show. Don't miss it. We're going to talk about our boldest takes for the remainder of the season. So definitely don't miss it. But as always, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week. And like I said, I won't see you till next Tuesday. So I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Thank you so much, as I always say, for listening. If you could do all the good things, like, share, subscribe, all you good stuff, write me a letter, send me a telegram, all that good stuff, I could appreciate it. I would appreciate it. But have a wonderful weekend. I'll see you next Tuesday. Take care. Peace.
Yeah, I told him I'ma hit it out of stands. I deserve another 100 bands. I deserve another 100 fans. Told them this was always in the plans. I just did it cause they said I can. Blowing euros when I'm down in France. Labels asking how I build a brand. Told them put a check up in my hands. Still got time, no cap. Made a few checks, but they all in the rest. Had a few friends, but they suck in the past. I don't even trip when I'm thinking about that. Hopped in the whip and we